Kia ora koutou everyone. Welcome to the very first installation of non-Instagrammable urbanism. Bit of a mouthful. We didn't expect such an incredible turnout. I think we put the invite out expecting that maybe we'd pull a few chairs around at my very small shared space and have a chat with mostly people I know. So it's just so fantastic to see so many people here tonight, and I really appreciate it. As I don't know, I was talking to Kent recently, it's like getting your people around you always makes you feel good, especially sometimes when you see some of the work we do end up in the Herald. So it's always nice to be surrounded by good people. So thank you so much. So this series kind of aims to look at beyond what we usually post on LinkedIn, totally guilty, and present at conferences and go beyond those photo ops to talk about really what happened, what are our wins, what are our losses, and our biggest challenges. I went to a conference recently with Boopsie in Chattanooga. This great guy stood up and he presented a project where he completely failed, and it was so refreshing. I learned so much from him in 10 minutes because I'm not going to repeat his mistakes. That was his plea. Don't build this thing. It really doesn't work. People hate it. I was like, thank you, because I may be a slightly cynical placemaker, but sometimes I think you need a little bit of that to keep going. Anyway, so the idea of tonight is just to learn and share in kind of an honest kind of place. And we also chose tactical urbanism as tonight's theme. Obviously, it's a really emerging kind of practice in New Zealand with our Wakakatahi Innovating Streets for People, and hi to some of the team members here, and also what we've seen around the world with what's happening with COVID. And the practice is also so relevant now as we face tighter budgets. People want to experience their streets without feeling like they're going to die. They don't want to feel the exhaust fumes and the noise and that kind of stuff. They want to get out with their kids and ride their bikes and just experience their neighbourhoods. So, and also we know trust in local government isn't that great at the moment, and this gives us the opportunity to rebuild that trust in a really open and democratic and fun way. So that's what gets me out of bed in the morning, and I think probably the same for a lot of you. So tonight we've got a great group of speakers. We've got a community advocate who works at the grassroots and pavement level, navigating council bureaucracy every day and coming up against some pretty interesting walls and down some pretty interesting rabbit holes, but always with an incredible smile on her face. Someone who is zooming in, I think Keegan can hear us, from Palmerston North, who through his work in a very small city has single-handedly delivered more tactical urbanism than we have in Auckland, whilst pissing off a whole lot of vegans. We have an urban strategist who's also a behavioural scientist and found out the hard way about a 24-hour shisha shop that didn't have a front door. And myself, a self-described bureaucratic navigator who never thought when I signed up for urban planning that I'd ever get the phone call to say someone had done a poo in the community garden. So also some big thanks to Uptown and Brent and for supporting us to be in this beautiful venue. I live and work in Uptown, and I'm just so excited about this neighbourhood. The Lot 23 team who helped us with all the tech and getting the everything set up. Auckland Transport for the bike parking. My partner Angus Muir, who's obviously provided the lights, who's not here tonight. Wonderful Charlotte, who works with me for corralling all of us and getting everything sorted. And obviously the speakers. Unfortunately our Zoom link didn't work, so whoever's trying to tune it at home will have to do that tomorrow with the recorder. And thanks to you guys. So I'll hand over to Brent to do a quick word about Uptown.
Welcome to Uptown. So that's all I have to say, really. This is quite a pleasurable experience, just getting up and not having to give a little talk, just saying thanks for being here. Liz rang and asked if we'd be interested in sponsoring, And the answer is yes. We want to support Liz and her business in Uptown, and we want to support creative people in Uptown. And it's great to be amongst a whole lot of, I can feel the vibe, it's great to be amongst a whole lot of creative people, and we want you people here to help create this space. So when people say, what is Uptown? Then you're part of building what that is. This is, quick, so I'm not, if you don't know what Uptown is, the precinct's only been around for about 5 or 6 years. This is one of the oldest parts of Auckland. As you know, as scholars of this, this is where the place where all the churches, where all the high ground where everything was built, where the prestigious parts of town were established way back. This is the time. This is the space where everyone used to come and socialise. There's legends. You talk to your great grandparents about the Orange Hall and about the trams, and it was a vibrant place where people were on the streets. And then in the 70s, the roads came in and dissected the place, Eden Terrace and Newton Grafton. That's what we wrap up as Uptown. So the motorways have now defined us. People coming back into this area to live. The new station, which is going to bring in lots more people, will make it even closer, in terms of perception of travel of space. So it's going to go full circle, if you like that, in terms of it's going to have more people. We're going to have more people on the streets in the next 5 to 10 years. And what that needs, we need people like you to help create the place that we want this place to be, keeping our heritage, building on it. This area has one of the highest density areas of NGOs, Forest and Bird, there's Greenpeace. So it's a connected, creative environment, not just in terms of designers and architects, but people that care about the community. So welcome to Uptown. Here is our magazine, the first one, which features in the middle a funky little map of it. So it's out by the wines. So when you're having one afterwards, if you're allowed one afterwards, pick up a copy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brent. Now we're going to zoom in to Keegan in Palmerston North. If we can get him online, he can hear me. There he is.
Hello.
He's to talk about his title, Asphalt Assault.
Right, is that me?
Wow.
Sorry, I can't quite see you guys for some reason.
You're quite loud.
But no, that's sweet.
Voice of God.
Cool. Kia ora everyone in Tamaki Makaurau. My name's Keegan from Paradise, otherwise known as Palmerston North, Papaioia, or as the locals call it, Dramiston North. I did hear a few laughs, that's great. So I'll crack into it. I'll just share my screen with you. But if you need to know who I am or whatnot, you can follow up later on. I'm on LinkedIn and whatnot. So my fails and my successes in this short 10 minutes is going to kind of focus on road murals. As somewhat of a inspiration that we got from Auckland. We loved your polka dots so much that we thought we'd want to copy you without copying you. So we thought, what's another shape that we can do with a lot less budget? And we figured out there's no way to screw up a triangle. As long as the pieces of masking tape all meet in the corners, you can't screw it up. Just circles are a little bit too difficult for us. You come to Palmerston North and you can't understand everything's on a right angle. It's because it's a lot cheaper. Basically just called up a few of the lads and we were like, look, let's try and do what Auckland does, but on a real dirt cheap budget. We managed to knock out these pink and blue triangles in our cafe and cultural precinct for about $1,500 worth of paint and materials. There were two failures in this project. One was intended and one was unintended. The intended failure, or the kind of design fault we were trying to build in, was we just wanted to test out how long the paint would last. This was one of our first road murals, so we needed to understand how the materials would fare. We lined it up with a walking and cycling conference in 2018, and so essentially, as long as the paint lasted 2 weeks, because we painted them about a week before the conference came in, and as long as they still looked sharp while all these people from around the country could see it and go, oh wow, as you can kind of see on the top screen there, then we were happy. After that, we didn't really mind how long the paint lasted. Ended up lasting about 9 months before people started tapping me on the shoulder saying, you should probably do something with that mess. Then the unintended failure here is, if you can see on the bottom right there, the DIY road closure. Now I am a trained cone shuffler. I do have my STMS level 1 ticket. It just happened to be that our traffic management company at the time got the wrong date because we were doing this in midnight. So I think they thought it was the day after the date we'd asked. So trying to call these guys at 1 in the morning to try and get them to come down and close the road for us was somewhat of a failure. So we ended up having to, I ended up having to break into our carpool access to get access into our other team's survey van, which had some mobile road closure gear. And then as you can see, we just borrowed a bit of road marking spray paint and made a road close sign. So what our traffic management coordinator does not know won't hurt him. And so I luckily didn't get a non-conformance notice for that one. I did for a parklet later on, but it's a 2-strike rule, so I've still got my ticket. Right, next one. This one might have travelled up your ways. So we had a recent renewal program done on a streetscape upgrade, and the businesses and residents are really keen on actually reinforcing a bit of a landmark in that corner site where they were, because they were like, oh look, we've got some sculptures down in the other intersection, the hotel down on the other intersection has got some planter box and other bits and pieces, there's nothing really for us. So when trying to say, oh, can we meet you at blah, they really came out with a bit of a wordy, the corner of this versus this street versus this street. So they're like, we've seen this awesome mural that was done in Vancouver of a giant fried egg, and we just thought it just stood out so well, we wanted to copy it. And I was like, well, look, this is the first time you guys are engaging in public space, so we'll take this one, and it'll lead to other things. So I was being led by them and their enthusiasm. There was a few people around the room, I must say, probably about 6 or 7 that were really keen and part of this project. And not one of us had realised until we'd actually promoted an event to come down and join in painting this road mural that this probably wasn't favourable towards our vegan community. It blew up on social media. Any publicity is good publicity, because the actual painting event hadn't gotten a lot of reach, and I hadn't had any budget to do any radio ads, so it worked in our favour. We got people down to paint. But yeah, there was a bit of egg on the face, to say the least. I love this crowd. That leads into our success, and this is us making an omelette out of an egg. And what happened with it was we sat down, and the residents and stuff are all freaking out. They're like, "Oh no, they're gonna vilify us and stuff like that." And I said, "Look, you got options here. If you want to stick to your guns and do an egg and say, look, the vegans are taking it out of context and it's just a painting or whatever, council will be a human shield. We'll take the hits for you, because really want to protect that enthusiasm of them, of their project. Otherwise, they might get scared from doing anything else down the street in case someone else gets offended." But actually, we had a chat with some of the people that were that had raised concerns about the egg mural, and we'd kind of got to a position where we were like, we'll move forward, but we'll just change the design. And I think the key thing that came out of it was that the whole kaupapa that the businesses had come to us with that initial egg idea was, we wanted an excuse to bring people together. And if it didn't bring everyone together, it wasn't doing its job as a project. And I really, really, really was impressed and admired that. And so they redesigned it so that they could make sure that everyone could come together and it wasn't a divisive project. So that was awesome. So we changed it around. They decided to go with polka dots. Fair call. They hadn't seen the polka dots you guys have, so I don't quite think it was a copy and paste job. They just really liked polka dots at the time. We managed to turn it into a project where, as you can see, everyone could get involved. So we called it Adopt-a-Dot. And basically every single dot that you see in the photo in front of you is a collection of memories that people have had together, joining in and painting during that day to help kind of, I suppose, soften the street. So it really warmed my heart every time I walked down and grab a coffee there. We grabbed everyone's names during the event, and we've actually put a sign up that celebrates everyone that contributed and rolled up their sleeves that day. That was such a good step forward from the last two projects that we had done beforehand with road murals. We've done a rainbow crossing as well, in terms of trying to figure out that balance between good quality materials for durability and whatnot, but actually low technical requirements in terms of application, so that actually the test for us was, could a 3-year-old pick up a paintbrush and join in on that road mural? And they did. It was great. They made a mess, but we tidied it up. But that's kind of now what our kaupapa moving forward with roadway art is can a 3-year-old actually paint something as part of this process? Our next success, I hope I'm still on time, but our next success is, if you've got lots of money, which I know you Aucklanders do, so you'll love this one. Sorry. So we got raised tables. I'm assuming everyone in the technical urbanism side of things knows what a raised table is. It's just an elongated courtesy crossing, basically. And we usually, to try and make sure that people know there's a difference in grade, so you don't go flying over it like General Lee, we put a hard gritty surface over the top. It's usually coloured. Now, usually we just like screed the whole thing over and just cover it all in one hit. But actually our designers were like, or our project manager was like, well, UCOL's down the road, our college learning, Polytechnic, why don't we just grab one of their design students, and as part of a real world project, we'll just get them to design something better than what we could do. And so that's what you see in the article there. The student made reference to the growth process of a student as well as the ebbing and flowing of a river. So that really was awesome for kind of reinforcing our sense of place, and also propped him up as a young designer to get such a large project there. So doing what we already do, but just a little bit smarter, was really awesome. And that is me. I'll hand over to, I understand Boopsie's next. She needs absolutely no introduction because she has managed to smash out the fine art of being in all places all at once somehow. I can't help but find her in corners and crevices in the internet and around the world. And of course Boopsie's there, so that's cool. So again, she's found her way into this amazing place. So I'll leave it over to you, Boopsie.
Thanks, Keegan. Does anyone have any questions for Keegan? I don't quite know how we'll do this, but I can hand the microphone. Yeah, he can hear.
Yeah, I can hear.
Yeah. Does anyone have a question for Keegan?
What are you doing next?
What are you doing next? Is the question.
What are we? Right. So there's some. I'm not going to divulge anything in case Catherine King's in the room, but NZTA are going to do some cool stuff. Yep. I'll just leave it at that. NZTA is going to do some cool stuff, so I'm excited about that. And we're going to jump on the back of that and probably do a roadway, like a roadway art or a road mural manual for Palmy. So hopefully that's something that you guys can wave in front of each other around the country and say, Palmy's doing this, pretty cool. So the intention will be to just put as much power and process and doing ability into the community as possible. And we'll probably just pay for paint and materials and traffic management, take the hard stuff out of the way, and we'll be the next Portland as far as roadway art goes.
Yeah, awesome. I think we can all agree that we really admire the incredible work you're doing, and you make it look so effortless. Just quick question, what's the magic secret to get this kind of stuff through your organisation?
So the magic secret for me is, in terms of trying to back my communities, is really just down to good relationship management. If someone doesn't trust you internally, or if you haven't built that trust up, being able to say, hey, are you all good if we just like close down the road on a Sunday night, and next thing you know, there'll probably be triangles there, but we never necessarily heard about it, and they were like, yep, cool. Is it takes a long time to do, and I think for us, there's the constant battles between trying to ask for forgiveness and beg for forgiveness and ask for permission. Sometimes we need to balance between the both to still maintain trust between the institutional kind of gatekeepers or holders of the mantle, and then also still maintaining the enthusiasm and agility of the community. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Keegan. A big round of applause for us.
Thank you for tolerating me.
No, it's wonderful. And I'm not sure if you'll be able to see what we're going to present next. I don't think we thought at that next dimension. So really...
I'm a great listener. So
okay, awesome. Okay, and obviously you've beautifully introduced Boopsie. So welcome, Boopsie. Come on up.
Kia ora te whānau, I tupumaya ho ki Los Angeles, e nāre tamaki markaoro taku tūranga waiwai I nai. Kia ora whānau, hello everyone. My name is Boopsie, I'm from Los Angeles, and I stand now in Auckland. So we'll just, I roll. Sorry. So I thought we'd start with a fail. I'll just give you a little timeline of this spot. It's 254 Ponsonby Road. It's also known as Ponsonby Park. In the year 2000, Bafamiscal was paid by Auckland Council to do an open spaces report on this street or area, and they found that they needed more civic open space. And they declared that to be a particular good area, 254, which is near the church, which is near Dizengoff, if you're familiar with the area, close to Herne Bay and Jervois Road. So providing that civic space where people could meet for free. And then in 2006, Auckland Council purchased this site, 254 Ponsonby Road, for the purposes of being an open space. And after collecting lots of rent and seeing that it was viable, they thought, okay, let's see if the community still wants it or we can enjoy it as a commercial retail spot. So they, Waitemata local board, created a group. And I went to the first meeting I started hearing about in 2015. In 2016, as a hospitality worker in that space and an active community advocate all around in different groups, I got really engaged in the process and became one of the leading members of the group. So in the top left, that is our Good Citizen Award Day. And the highlight of that is I still work with a lot of those people, and particularly the Gray Lynn pump track gentleman, who probably, I'm pretty sure, built one already in Tauranga for $150,000 from private money in public space. So after joining this group, we got really collected, we organized. That is a parklet I did on my own while studying at Auckland University. I remember telling my whole class, I have to leave early because I got to secure this parking spot. It has to be in front of Dizengoff because it has to be on parking day, and I have to park at 4 p.m. so I don't get a ticket after 6 p.m. And they were like, you're crazy, and I got it. I was like praying while I was driving from Uni to Ponsonby Road, and a car pulled out at 4:04, and I parked my car, and I was like, yes. And Nikki Kay sat in that parklet, Helen White, all these politicians, because by accident it was parking day as well, it was market day as well. And it was also election time, so like I had to keep balloons of different colors out of the parklet. I'm like, this is a neutral space, this is for everybody. And they're all national, like trying to sit in there in greens, and I was like, it's a parklet, leave it alone, it's for everyone, children. And so the Japanese tourists in this photo were not harmed, and they gave their permission. I was like, I'm gonna use this for the internet to promote open public space, because there's nowhere for you to sit for free. And the best part was people sitting in it going, I see your point, because it had to be close enough to the park where it's like there's nowhere within a 1 kilometer radius. You're more likely to buy another bottle of alcohol than you are to sit for free. Yeah. And I've done a map actually and sent it to every counselor about the different liquor stores that are in a radius of that spot. So, and then the top right, we were really proud to work with them because, so I'm kind of going with some wins before the big fail. But anyways, the win here was that we worked with University of Auckland because we had some landscape architects in our group, and they met with I loved having her in our meetings because we would meet with the government, but we also met as a community organization group, and we just chatted about ideas for the space. And she said, my students would like to designed this, and we organized it with them before we created the brief for our architects and for our landscape architects. We had students help make their own drawings, and the biggest budget part was getting that location, which was $1,000. And I met the guy like 4 days before. I was like, we're gonna use all our budget for this space because we want as many people to come into this room to help build the brief. So our biggest budget spend for the first 3 years was I had to convince the group that we wanted as many people in the space voting on it, more so than more flyers and mailboxes. So we got into like Paula Wilkinson and Jen and all of our group, Chris Bailey. We all worked really hard for 4 years for free, meeting all these people. And then we got to the point where we got $7.7 million from Panuku letting go of this place. And I presented 10 to 15 times to the governing body and the local board. And we lost the failure was that we lost our strength in making our own process. We allowed, once we got through, we trusted them when they told us, you don't need to have any more meetings, it's all under control. And we should have kept our momentum ourselves as a team. We should have been always organizing plan B, C, and D like we did for all these other times. We always had a plan C and D. If we couldn't get that location, let's just do it on the site. If we couldn't get that community center, let's do that. If the council says no, what are we gonna do next? Where are we gonna get the money from? Which is what I started researching in every corner of every office room that I met Keegan in, or every Zoom lately, so. And that was the failure, is that before COVID, we let them decide for us when and where we got the money from and how we were gonna do it. And so we've lost that momentum, and right now it's, with the new budget coming out, it's most likely gonna be pushed. And we put the process over the people in that moment, and we've lost those relationships with all those people. And the benefit council has is they can just send an email, oh, sorry, emergency budget, we're out of office. And I have to answer, Boopsie, when's the park happening? Every day for the last 5 years I get asked. I get yelled at across Ponsonby Road. Literally Franklin Road, they're like, what's happening? I'm like, oh, write an article, I don't know. So that's the sadness with that, so that's the fail. So a little win. And so on the bottom of the last slide was people, and on the side of the slide are all the people that are part of the process. And so because we were waiting so long for Ponsonby Park, I was like, let's just trial, if we have a public space, how do we use it and how much will it cost and what kind of budgets? Because if we get our park, I'd like to do stuff like this there. So let's try it in a public space. So I did it illegally for Placemaking Week. That's an illegal rogue table and bean bags from Placemaking Week that I threw there because I knew I wanted to do one eventually, and I tested it out. And when I presented to the local board after and did this event and complained how hard it was, they said, why didn't you just do it illegally? I'm like, you gave me a grant and I signed a contract that said I wouldn't break any laws. So I waited 6 months. So then I wanted to read, because in November 2018, I applied for this grant. And I said, I'd like to have it over Christmas or New Year's. And they said, sorry, it's not available till February 2020. At the time, my kids were going to kindy down that hill. So I walked through it 5 days a week, and I walked past it to uni every weekend. I was like, ain't nothing happening on that spot for 3 months. And so the win here is that I got an answer to my email in August of 2019 as to why I didn't have access to the site. And I read this also to Phil Goff and Chris Darby. Through consultation with the land advisory event facilitation team, was advised the proposal was being considered by, I said, why couldn't I have this event here? So it was advised the proposal was being considered by the local board for utilization of Western Park for a container holding bike rentals. And I know these guys, so I knew exactly what they were talking about personally. As this proposal was received prior to the event permit application, the utilization of the space was held for the land advisory application. It is understood that after consultation with the local board, the container application was declined. As utilization of the space was managed by the land advisory team, in parentheses I wrote, why are these separate? Event facilitation did not have oversight into the proposed details and only could advise on availability. So, why there's no calendar of events for Waitemata, why there's no mapped out, I was like, is it a wedding down there? And so that was their answer. Room for improvement. Incompetent. Win. And then other than a lovely note to show that even the smallest of neighborhood events are globally impactful. Yeah. We have been traveling and live in London. This has been one of the highlights. Such a great way to enjoy a summer evening in Auckland. Please keep doing this, exo strangers. So the ferry shop. And the other one here is the miso ramen. I've tried to get Uptown, please do more food trucks when you can. Everyone wins. But I could not get the food truck, and I kind of slipped it in last minute, broke a lot of health and safety. Sorry, it's done now. I've learned my lesson. I now check that box that says LPG. I've learned. When they rolled up, I thought they had electric, and then I saw a gas bottle. I'm like, I didn't see a gas bottle. I was like, I feel like I signed that off. So they now work a lot with the kombucha place. So they, because of this event, they made that relationship, and they support each other. So another win, the win here is that on this bottom right here, you might recognize the style to K Road trash bin. And so the K Road Business Association allowed people to paint their bins before being removed or whatever. Liz can tell you in the future if you have any questions about the bins, but I saw it and she had luckily put her Instagram on there. And I post anything that looks beautiful and makes me smile or stop, or my kids point it out. So I quickly Instagrammed it, shared it, and then I thought, hey, I've just done a grant for Albert Eden. They'll pay you if you're interested in doing a live painting, because if you can see in that middle picture, it's a live painting, so of students. So that student, she's not in this picture. Oh yeah, she is. So the middle girl there is in the middle of that, on the top left. So it was the students that built the furniture are also in the painting, and now that painting is up in the reception of Ko-Fi. So if you have any kids or friends and you go to pick them up, you just look up, and the office lady loves it. She's like, yeah, and it was by accident they had the uniforms because I needed any pictures of any students, and all we could use was school photos once the parents gave the teacher the permission. So, and the one on the bottom left is actually Flox's son, and I know her quite well. So I was like, hey, I have like a week to get like permission from parents to paint their kids really big. Will you be okay with it? So she gave the first permission because she kind of started it a bit and then let the kids, so my daughters, other kids all had to go on the background. And the coolest thing about this one was it took us like 3 days to get a photo of her tonga, of her punamu, because she's like, I do not want to mess up how this looks. And so I had to find an up-close, high-res photo of her necklace that was in this photo they gave, but it wasn't close enough and she didn't want to mess it up. So she spent a lot of time on that necklace. And then my last fail, still going. I got the sign up, which I thought was impressive. I was like, are they gonna come take down the signs of the event they're not letting me do? So, which then kind of proved my point that I could get it done, but it got pulled. So basically, this was from November 2019. I started working on this. I got a grant to luckily trial process. So I said, I find the street closure process very constrictive. Particularly that bothers me is the ad. So I'm trying desperately to change the AT print ad law from 1977, or Catherine King might know the actual date, before the 80s, where if you do any street closure, you must pay for a print ad from one company in Wellington that you, with my own money, because I got one of those grants where you like give your own money first and then get it paid back. And I was like, I'm doing this for the business, the community of Ponsonby. And I wrote, before Christmas, I had to write like a $1,200 check to some company because of a paper ad was going to go in the Herald that everyone reads today. And so I did it. And then the main purpose of this whole trial to close the street was solely that kids could walk from school. We have all these primary schools and all these high schools. All the kids pour off the St. Kedrigen bus. All the kids pour off the St. King's bus. Where are they going at 3? I was gonna have hula hoopers, dance party. Parents might shop in the shops. I just wanted to do it to test how it could be, how much it cost, and if it was possible for AT to cover it. And the fail really was, well, the beginning, like, I emailed 7 local boards because I refused to let the retailers of the community pay for it. I thought if you're gonna make this law, council should pay for it on principle. I just refused to fundraise or, so luckily at the last minute, lovely, because I emailed the local board and they're like, oh, maybe you don't have to do the AT ad. Maybe you can just do a Ponsonby News article. And then AT would say, no, you can't do a Ponsonby, it has to be this. Oh my God. And so all the local board didn't even understand how strict and extreme that law was. And then I was going back and forth with Pippa Coombe. And finally, the liaison, and then at the last minute, walking and cycling, who maybe paid for the bike parking. Thank you. I love you, Zane. You came through, and you're like, we'll pay for your ad in the. Because I had emailed like 20 real estate agents, which was good because they said, I'm sorry, we used our budget, but we'll pay for it next time. So the best part of all these trials is that everyone who didn't like the idea, everyone who was confused, A, learn more, or B, want to be part of the next one. So even though it didn't happen, if I was more organized, I have like a beautiful like folder that was like PBA and all the businesses, and another folder that was like AT people that might help you, but not there yet. But I know them in my head, who's on my side. And most of them are now, because once that sign went up, the businesses were like, holy crap, you actually got it done. And we've been trying for a year, we just never got organized. And we like the idea, but we're gonna pull the plug on you, or we'll sue you. So I was like, okay, I don't wanna get sued, I'll just pull the plug. It looks like it's gonna rain anyways. And only because too, I said in the grant, I will trial the process. I wanna address all your barriers you're giving to the average person. So then I presented to the governing body or the planning committee. I presented to the Whites and Matan and said, this should be easier. The same thing I did with the park. Because power is a whole nother story that'll have to be on an email if you have a question on power and three-phase power and community events. But what was hardest with this fail was that like the new Obuco reboot was like already excited. They're building like furniture to put their new pizza out. And as you know with Adriana, so Adriana does pallets and she was helping me already design furniture for this event. And basically I learned a lot from this, and if anyone has any other questions. That bottom left corner is the Glass House Collective, and they're based in Tennessee, where I met Liz and Keegan when we all went together for that, and I spoke at that. But that was the best day of like my last 3 years, because that is just a portion of the people we worked with, and they're smart. They're like, come for a workshop in Tennessee. And we all sat there, and there was like an urban planner from Dallas, an urban planner from Philadelphia, Singapore people, and they're like, okay, write us a 5-year plan and a 10-year plan, and here's maps, and here it's organized. And they had all the maps for us, and together we organized our group, because probably a few of us were like really active. They separated us, they read all our bios on LinkedIn and made groups according to our strengths and put us with the strengths. And then the next day I met the mayor of Chattanooga, and I was like, have you talked to Glass House? Have you talked to Wanda? She knows what's up. And he's like, I'm meeting her today. I'm like, right? You better do what she says. So it was like they had harnessed that energy, and they meet regularly, and they maintain the power of the people, and they don't give away the process, because they understand that if you maintain the momentum and they maintain the power, and you can find them all posted somewhere, their website, they just have a movement about asking for help, showing when you help them that they deliver, and that's it. Any questions?
I think I missed the bit where you said why the street party got pulled.
Oh, I don't know how much I'm allowed to say, but basically, so the fail was I underestimated retailers' love of their parking spots. And I had spoken to all the managers. I had spoken to everyone since August of 2019. I was like, look, I'm gonna plan a party, it's gonna be great. And so they just thought it was great too. And I didn't realize that Auckland Transport, when they give you the permit, is when they actually tell the retailers. I assume the managers are saying, hey, Boopsie's gonna have a free party. We don't have to pay for anything. She's closing the road. It's gonna be just for 3 hours. And the owners, once they got notified, freaked out, which I think everyone was kind of, yeah, it was nothing, well, yeah, it was a 3-hour party max. Yeah, I just wanted to test it, right? I was like, what? Yeah. And it was closed, to be fair, if you look at the map, it was before, they have their own private parking in front of their venues, the ones that, well, may no name. But basically, I should have included them from day one and let them design their party. And they all afterwards are like, we just didn't like that we found out late. And there was another party afterwards that I was trying to collaborate with, but one was night and morning. But basically, the failure had a huge learning is that if I work on that street, they can design it. I just want Auckland Transport to say, your street closure is free. We'll help you facilitate the traffic. Here's all the plans. You tell us what day you want. You spend your money making it as beautiful and nice for the retailers, but we'll do all the health and safety. Took me ages. The waste management. To say that I didn't need security for a morning brunch party took me 5 emails. I was like, it's just a morning brunch party. It says here I need security. And they finally like, fine, you don't need security. It's okay. I'm like, okay. And the bins and the power, all these questions shouldn't exist for that location. So with the planning committee, we were working on adapting policy. So if you have a smaller function, there's just a little thing that says your health and management, health and safety, it's reduced, because also it's quite scary. If you're a little community group trying to have fun, you look at this 25-page document that's asking you where your recyclables are going. You're like, never mind, as long as we're at the grant, I'm doing this for free anyways. No parties. So yeah, so it was my fault. I should have went straight to the owners and let them design it. And they wanted to have like a meeting with the leftover budget. Can you use the remainder of your budget to pay for nibbles, and we'll do a meeting, we'll plan a new street party. Because they'd been trying for a while, but it wasn't on, they didn't think I'd get that far where the sign went up. So now that I can, they're like, let's work together. So yeah, so always talk to the owners of the retail locations, which I'm sure experts in front of me could have told me. They're like, Boopsie, like watching, and she'll address it. I'll never do that again.
No, it doesn't always work.
It was best when they sent me an email. They say, you could use Western Park. I'm like, been there, done that. So, any other questions? Okay. Well, oh, you'll introduce now.
Thanks, Boopsie.
Okay. Awesome. I'm next. Right. So I don't know. For those of you who don't know about the Griffiths Gardens, I'll give a very quick overview on kind of where it came from. So everyone knows that Auckland Council's head office is at 135 Albert Street. So one day in 2017, I was looking out my office window. I got the great window seat. Thanks, Barbara. She gave it to me. And noticed that they were tearing down the old Griffiths building. Now, knowing that that was going to be the future CRL site, I was like, I wonder what's going in there. Now, can't remember, his surname's Bird, but he was the construction manager, hard case construction manager for the CRL. He was down there kicking something, and I went up to him and I said, hey, what are you doing with that site? And he's like, oh, we're just going to whack a fence around it and maybe give it to the community or the property people at council. So I got in touch with the property person in council who wanted to put some weird containers on it. And I said, no, don't do that. Make the site bare and ready to go. And we at the Auckland Design Office will do something special with it. Luckily, Barbara trusted me. I think she thought I was mad, but that's her beauty. She sees the beauty in the madness. And we created the Griffiths Gardens. This is a picture of the opening day with some of my favourite people. It was looking beautiful and sunny and gorgeous. So initially we got a license to occupy from Auckland Transport for 18 months for the site. We hacked into the public toilets next door to get water and power, which was amazing. I found the guy with the key at the right day and the right time, and he crawled in the back and hooked it up for us, which was amazing. We never had to pay for power or anything for the whole time. So there were many wins on this project, and I feel like this project has like, you know, a really dear place in my heart because of its informality and its kind of grungy and roughness. It just opened it up as like a laboratory for testing. You know, you go to Aotearoa Square and you really have to get a health and safety plan just to like put the smallest thing on the grass. It is like a nightmare. So for example, the community fridge, which was a project championed by Amanda Chapman, who actually got waste minimisation funding from council, and she kind of got in touch with me 5 days before we were opening the site and said, I've got a community fridge, I've got money for it, I've got nowhere to put it, no one will think they keep sending me to health and safety experts. And we're like, right, we got her a shed, and in 5 days it was on the site. So that was the beauty of this space, the experimentation and the kindness that came out of it. So we had groups just showing up. I looked out the window one day and I was like, is someone getting a haircut in the Griffiths Gardens? And this amazing woman had rolled up. Take it, she had parked her car on Wellesley Street footpath, but I got her a parking pass in the Civic car park, and she was cutting rough sleepers' hair. And like, that was incredible, and people showed up and they got their haircuts. The amazing Sikhs would show up every Friday and feed people. They were unpermitted and everything, but we helped them in the end get them a permit. We didn't stop what they were doing, but they just kept going. The CCRG, the residents group, had their Jumbly Bumbly sale. We also, with Parongorongo, hosted a series of artisan residencies and like kind of experimental kind of art and light art through the Parongorongo structure. So it was really incredible, that informality, the kind of give anything a go. We had kind of autonomy to say yes or no, which was really fantastic. Obviously everything was safe and well cared for, but and the anchor really of this whole site was the fluff bees. So the timing for this was kind of serendipitous. When I looked down and found it, we just started talking to Sarah Smuts-Kennedy about her concept for the city centre as the safest place in the world for bees. And so this was just the perfect kind of timing. So she really anchored, and her team anchored this project, which just grew, excuse the pun, and evolved over time. We saw incredible amounts of school children that you'd never see really in the city centre getting their hands dirty. People coming in for lunchtime learning who are now then championing their own community gardens that just kind of like thrived. And we had this incredible group, Afina Mai, who I'll talk to about, who carved these po for the gardens, and they were kind of the guardians of the space, these po, and planted Rongo garden around it, because a lot of our rough sleepers in the city centre are Māori, and they really connected and found the space home. They were our volunteers, they were watering the garden. It was really incredible. And now a lot of those guys are leaders in their community, and it's just like the full circle run that's been so incredible. Now that didn't come without its challenge, and what I found out today when trying to put this together is you don't take photos of the shit. So I was trying to find some photos of the site and of all the kind of challenges we had, and I just couldn't seem to find one, but I did find this spreadsheet which tracked all our maintenance issues. So I think we wildly underestimated what was required to keep a space like this going. You know, the beauty of a brand new public space is it's like an old villa. The Griffiths gardens are like an old villa. You scrub and you scrub and you scrub and it still looks dirty. It's like that student flat. And so as you can see, you know, the raw materials, these are really old surfaces. And when we got the site, we specified the materials thinking it would be there for 18 months. Foolish us relying on the City Rail Link's schedule when really the site was there for 3 years. So kind of at the 18-month point, things started to really degrade, but we hadn't really put aside the budget to think about that next 18 months. Also, it coincided with the synthetics crisis in the city centre. So we found the usual rough sleepers who were kind of kaitiaki of the space became scared and didn't interact with the space. We had to pull down our beautiful shade structure just because it became kind of a camp, and it was really kind of garden volunteers weren't showing up, the community fridge volunteers weren't showing up, like the vibe completely changed. And because we couldn't, obviously we'd sit in the office and go, we can't fix a public health crisis. You know, as placemakers, as tactical urbanists, you know, like that's way bigger than us. So what can we do? Just as another point, I didn't think I'd ever spend so much time trying to get one of these guys, who are really expensive and still made us pay our bill, to come on site and clean. I know the model's changed now, so yay, but that was incredibly frustrating going there, and it just hadn't been swept. And trust me, we still had to pay the bill. One last thing. This was in a goldfish bowl of all the bureaucrats in Auckland. So you can imagine Bledisloe House looks down on this, 135 Albert Street. I had the head of a very probably one of the highest paid bureaucrats yell at me through the fence telling me this would be a completely unsafe site. He backed down after we spent probably $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 on a health and safety audit when they were saying that kids would fall down these steps, and he just showed them pictures of the newly built play space in Wynyard Quarter going, it's exactly the same. So that was a challenge of this space, was just everyone's eyes were on it all the time. But I suppose I talked about the social issues, and I'm kind of cheating because this is kind of another win, is that the people who used to sleep in the space and then became part of Housing First and stuff actually kind of circled back and became, they put together this Rahina Hora Wellbeing Mondays, where all the rough sleep, you know, the community got together and learnt together, ate food, did healing and all that kind of stuff. And this was the last project that was on the site before it all got packed down and all its different bits got distributed around the city. So that was a really like special and cool way to kind of round out a project which was really their space. So really cool. Thank you. And next, last but not, pardon?
Questions?
Questions. Oh yeah, questions. Sorry. Any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Okay, right.
Cool.
There you go, Nat. It's all yours. Whack-a-mole, highs and lows of High Street.
Kia ora everyone, I'm Natalie. Before I get started, just also like to thank Liz and Charlotte. What a fun night. This has been really cool. Eye-opening for me as well. And hopefully I can share a bit of reality with you all, I guess, on what has been a successful project. We won't deny that, like it has been a success, but it hasn't come without its challenges. And yeah, we'll sort of take you through our journey as we move through this. So this has been a long time of momentum building, possibly 7 years in the making, I would say. And Boopsie, there may be one or two stakeholders that probably contributed to some of that delay in the momentum building that might have contributed to your project, one or two. But yeah, we started off with, in August, I guess, with a pretty strong position for this idea of co-design and some trust in what that process could look like. You know, Cam, who's here tonight, was instrumental in help developing some of that trust in the early parts of last year, alongside Tanya from Heart of the City, who's not here tonight, but played a big key role in this with us as well. We had 40 plus people show up to our first co-design session in Ellen Melba Centre. We used the Social Link Canvas as our sort of framework for how we wanted to try and tackle this issue and the opportunities, I guess, of High Street and how it can work better for people and function better for business and still maintain, you know, a vital and vibrant place. We mapped everything out, you know, we had stages of the street set up, you know, 1 to 3. Let's get down into some of the detail and, you know, what are some of these issues. We've got enforcement here, which will continue to play out, I think, in many years to come. The realities, I guess, of some of those challenges being policy-led rather than, you know, an easy design fix on the ground. You'll see that play out, I'm sure, in many more of these types of projects in the future. But yeah, we gave the opportunity for people to design the street, tell us what you think should go where and when we should trial some of these things. But, you know, when you're inviting that many people from that many backgrounds, you've got residents, you've got, you know, business owners, you have property owners, you've got property managers, you've got AT staff, you've got Auckland Council staff, and you're all in this room together and you're all talking about this. And there's some positivity there, but you do realise just how complex this whole system of a street actually is. And like every street, you know, there are many things that appear. It's a system, so you plug one hole and something pops up somewhere else that you maybe, you know, didn't plan for, unintended, and just naturally that's what happens when you're working in a system. So as much as you might like, you try to plan for these things, you try to do everything, but still those unintended consequences happen. And like our friend Boris here, you adopt a strategic approach, and hopefully your approach is slightly more strategic than Boris's approach to some of the more recent issues going on in the UK at the moment. Thank God we're in New Zealand, I have to say. But you do it with some focused, you know, intention. And you might end up with this. And this is a pretty awesome picture to look at. And actually this is a picture post-lockdown. And what it shows is that, you know, we've removed all on-street private car parking spaces on High Street. We've replaced them with a seamless footpath, thanks to some savvy design work from Angus Muir Design and some others in the community that gave us some advice on how they'd like to see it look and feel. We provided more loading space all along the eastern side. So this is obviously opposite to what you see here. This is the west of High Street, the other side is the eastern side. And we even got some dual purpose loading and servicing, which after hours became on-street car parking from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. to service some of those needs of people further up the street, as we determined later on in the project that the needs change. You know, the business makeup and the activities makeup of the street changes as you move along High Street, and we had to adapt. So in this, while we created more space for people, we also made some pretty honest mistakes, and meeting the needs of some of those people in the stage 3 area, as we call the top end of High Street, we put a loading zone in probably the most contested piece of footpath space in between Jeweller's Workshop and across the road. So here you see a loading truck unloading some milk, fully blocking the footpath on the eastern side of High Street. We also provided a space for vehicles to mount a curb outside Stolen Summer and opposite Unity Books. And what seems like a relatively easy fix, again, is just one of those things that you learn, and you deal with an issue somewhere and it pops up somewhere else, and you just have to have that flexibility within your program and within your budget to continue to make these maintenance changes to the street. And I don't mean to make this all, doom and gloom, start with the positive stuff and end with the negative stuff, but this is a work in progress. High Street's still happening right now. We're in our last month of pilot phase for this stage, and we're still evaluating things. We've just barely, I think going out tomorrow, or maybe it was today, Nicole, who's from our team here as well, asking people, how do you feel about changes now? Because COVID happened, and it's resulted in something that none of us could have planned for. And when you're relying on data to make decisions, the quality of your data and the type of metrics that you're using become really real. So thank goodness for sentiment, and thank goodness for asking people how they feel about things and collecting some of that information up front, because when you get down to the metrics and the numbers, it doesn't look very pretty. Even before COVID, pedestrian numbers were decreasing.
It's good traffic. Yeah.
Pedestrian numbers decreased, and we were also encouraging people to walk on one side of the road versus the other because we provided more footpath space. And that's what you can see, I guess, here in this walking section, which is the one that's the most significant. So we did public life surveys before stage 1 went in, which was that bottom part of High Street. And then after each stage, we've reiterated that, and we've checked, mode. We've looked at the age of people, male, female, gender split. And then we also looked at the pedestrian counts that how did the city have, which are at the bottom and the top end of the street. So at the top end of the street, that was the last part. We've only just finished that. That's only just happened in May. But stage 1 area, number 2 High Street is underneath Hotel de Brett, that corner. You can see it was already on a decreasing trend. That's the other side of the street to where we put the footpath space. And so that's resulted in, still a decreasing trend, maybe not quite as dramatic as it might have been, but COVID hits. What do? How do you base your measure of success of providing more loading space, providing more space for people, but the reality of the people aren't there because they can't be there, So, and this isn't all doom and gloom. I mean, we ended up doing a follow-up measure, which we just got the results from the 7th of July, so that was Friday. And you can see both sides of the street in stage 1 area, which is the most useful metric because we've been collecting this since the beginning, is about equal. So while there's less people, they're using both sides of the street. So that's positive, right? Maybe it's because there's less people loading, who knows, not sure, but it's still there. But we've managed to keep a pretty positive sentiment with people on the street. We just had our most recent reference group meeting on Tuesday night, and it's businesses, it's residents, and we only had 3 out of the 8 people show up that we were expecting, but they were pretty honest with us, and they just said, we love it, we love the look of it, we love how it's turned out, but shit, this has been pretty tough the last few months, how do you move forward? What learnings do you take from it other than just, thank God we're here now and we're not doing something really disruptive. I won't get into too many specifics, but some of them are lucky to be on High Street and not on K Road right now, for example. Mm-hmm. So it's not all doom and gloom. You can still win people over with this method. It's about that demonstration of process and showing them that they can actually influence what happens on the ground. And that goes out, that trust building started from a long time ago, from getting the right people around the table, and some hard work on council and AT. You know, like, I will give them credit where credit's due. They had trust in that process themselves to at least enable this to happen. The design stuff's easy. Making physical changes on the ground is really easy as well. The hard stuff is when you get that policy change that enables the early morning loading frame, 6 till 11 loading times, or the let's have Friday closures for every Friday. To enable that to happen in the current model is an event permit every time, and it's traffic management every time. And for a pilot project, you just can't use that funding can only go so far. So something to think about as we move forward with these types of methods of testing things on the street. And I'm really excited by the Innovative Streets program, because I think that's going to go a long way to enable more communities to sort of experience this type of testing and trialing, and hopefully build some trust within own, council departments that this is a way we can go about in doing this. But we finished our reference group meeting on Tuesday night with some very positive feedback still, even with current COVID situation. Like, they're glad to be in the situation they're in now. So you can still win some hearts. And I'm happy to take any questions that anyone has about this at all. Yeah.
I've got a quite technical question. I've looked at...
I might not be the best to answer this, but I'll look around the room.
I've looked at the option that you used there for widening the footpaths in the context of creating bikeways and shared paths. Have you looked into slip resistance and stuff? Or what was your experience there?
That was a big thing for this, because it was about all accessibilities as much as you can achieve in that environment, and that was part of the brief. So there's slip resistant treatment.
It's rated at the highest.
The highest, yeah.
There's a producer statement. It's pretty high up.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously that wasn't the intent, but you could have done that for a cycleway as well, that same material and etc.
I'm not sure. I mean,
I suppose you can find what the slip. I don't know what. Yeah, I'm not sure. We didn't look at that as a.
Yeah, for us, the biggest issues that came out of those co-design session, or that first co-design session in the chat beforehand, was around footpath congestion. So it was more space for people at footpath grade as the priority. And then it was, maintaining a high street vibrant feel. It had to look like high street. And I think one of the great things about that project is it looks like something that's been there for longer than it has. It's seamlessly fitted in with that. And that's, down to the quality of the design response. And fortunately, it can last quite a long time. I mean, it's probably got 5 years on its, 5 to 10 years maybe. Yeah. You go?
So you said businesses are being blunt about how hard it is, but are they actively asking for parking back?
No.
Or not?
No, they're not. I'll say that one of the negotiations for the changes in the stage 3 area was around that dual purpose loading idea. So you've got after hours businesses that some of them 24/7, one, open door shisha shop.
Doesn't have a door.
And his argument was that, his customers come any time of day, particularly on the weekends, they'll drive in and the Victoria Street car park closes at midnight. And so if there isn't public transport that services that area well, and their customers are coming from outside of that area, what is the alternative? And so without opening up the Victoria Street car park 24/7, because that's also a business decision, right? Commercially, that has to make sense, I guess, for AT. It's like, where was that balance? But that was probably the biggest pressure we had around the removal of parking, was negotiating that space. And to date, we haven't needed to bring any back, and I don't suspect there's an intention to at this point. There's no request to. Yep.
Obviously, you've shown it, you mostly improved footpaths on one side.
Yeah.
Was that very contentious, particularly in the beginning when you sort of did the co-design process? Because sort of depending on how you stand on the matter, everyone could see themselves as being on the good side and on the bad side.
Yep, that came up not so much in the first stage because the loading requirements on the eastern side help, like the hotel being there, they needed to have that access for servicing the hotel. There was a general feeling that that space worked well for having predominantly loading on the eastern side as well. Certainly, as soon as you moved past Vulcan Lane, that's when it started to become more contentious. And where we have the issues with cars mounting the curb and getting up on the footpath is exactly in that space, and it's blocking retail. You know, they can't. That was a concern that was raised earlier on, and we said, okay, we're going to test this, we're going to see how it goes, and we're seeing what they basically predicted would happen, which is the retail frontage is being blocked off.
I kind of have just a quick question for all of the speakers, because we're talking about sort of facing a lot of difficulties. How do you all remain resilient in a time of, like, when you're faced with so many challenges constantly in your work? And you know, you've all been working in this space for such a long time as well. You all obviously have some resilience. So do you have any, like, just final little gems to share about that?
That's a great question.
I text these two a lot.
You lean on your support people a lot. You come back at work and you just have a good moan about it.
Yeah.
You know, like how many times Nicole and I have sat there and just been like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know, but the thing is, people's concerns are real and they're grounded in a sense of fear sometimes, and so as much as you can, you're trying to, like, remind them of this, you know, experience as being beneficial, or, you know, and building that trust that there is, if things go wrong, that you will respond to that too. And so it's just, yeah, you try not to take it personally, because at the ultimately you are there in front of someone, and I've had a business cry in front of me telling me that I'm going to destroy their business. And that's just the reality of it, and it's taken some time to learn to not take that personally. But yeah, I
think it's just being surrounded by a community of people. I kind of suppose that's what I alluded to at the beginning.
Yeah.
To be able to share frustrations and learning and figure out who that person is in the organisation that's going to clear a path for you, and kind of just don't engage with the others.
There's a run
or
with,
you just
run
spend
with your
weekends in
runners.
bed, like, let's be honest, like, or eat lots of cake. So I don't know really.
Sometimes, like a couple of times, it's just been the fear is more that they felt like they never had a hearing before. So if you're giving them an opportunity to at least just express it. The first co-design session we had in the High Street project was one of my most favourable experiences I've ever had working, because you had people coming into that space that clearly had, like, their idea of what this was going to be like for them, and you just saw it all unpacking in front of you, and then all of a sudden they were listening to their colleague or their other business or their resident across the hall saying something, and they're like, oh yeah, I could see how, like, my view would bias me, and then, oh, that doesn't suit you, okay, oh, maybe there's something in the middle, and that actually played out right in front of us, and that was the best thing. Yeah. So you try and remember those moments.
Yeah.
As much as you can. Yeah. Hi.
Directly related to that, you sort of answered it before I could ask. You're saying that bringing them all together helped a lot.
Yeah.
Do you, in that sense, still see a purpose for one-on-one?
Yes, absolutely.
If so, would you do that before or after those?
One of our key learnings in the whole engagement on this co-design project was that when you created that type of environment where you got the 45 people in the room all talking, and the right people listening and at least providing, you know, technical advice as well, and then you could follow through and demonstrate a reality or some follow through of that discussion. We had 2 people show up to our next co-design workshop, and we had, you know, open days. The best time we got follow-up from people was actually, like, meeting them in their door, like at their retail, you know, shop or whatever, and saying, hey, this is where the design's progressed to, what do you think about this? Like, yep, cool, I like that. And then it was 5 minutes and that was done. But you just needed to be able to meet them where they were ready to meet you. Once they had that trust in that process established, you were good to go. but you just needed to spend that time building the momentum. And in High Street it took 7 years because there were other things that happened.
Like I went individually for the Ponsonby Park, every single business, because I used to work in those businesses. So I was like, I know you're busy, and I went at like 10 a.m. before they open. And even when I choose to, like, I drop in and I went individually over and over and over again for 3 years. Every time we had a new survey, I didn't wait for them to respond. I just brought the survey and read the questions to them, and then they don't have to show up to those.
They feel like they've had your time, and you can demonstrate where their feedback has been, you know, shown in the project in some way, shape or form. Hopefully. It's not always the case.
Just on that, during COVID, you know, simple lesson, but you know, we to help all the businesses, we produced point of sale, etc. We didn't send out an email saying, do you want this? We just went door to door, and they just loved it. You know, like they just, you know, you're coming in and they're putting it up and you're helping them. It's a tangible thing, and from that, you know, rather than just an electronic message, there's that connection from then. Oh, you were the guys that helped us, you know, connected with us, and so that was a big learning for me. No more emails, just go out and give it to them and just talk to them, you know.
Yeah, definitely. All right, one more.
So I just want to say on the back of that, I just opened my phone to check the time, and I have a notification from the Guild that says Queen Street retailers furious with Auckland Council for messing up road.
That's a good time to check it out.
So there's one article up there.
Right.
No, everyone else is checking their phone who's on the Queen Street team.
I will know. We are part of the Queen Street team.
The Queen Street team might have to. We'll give them a round of applause. Well, I know everyone's probably cold and hungry and a little bit sleepy, so thank you so much for coming. This means heaps, and please have a think. I'm keen to do these in different themes, so it could be urban strategy, it could be anything, community events, whatever. Like, have a think about where we can share this kind of knowledge and like have a laugh and, you know, build resilience by being around our people and being honest and open, because that's how we gotta keep going. So thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate seeing you all here, and thanks to speakers and sponsors and everyone. Awesome. Have the rest of the cheese, please. Or I will at home.